And I am now live, and this is Inquisition episode. I've not got a clue. Bit of a change today. Dunk's given us the keys to the kingdom. He's not here at the moment. He can't be here for the moment. He's coming back from the airport. He's about 45 minutes away. So it's going to be me, myself, and Casey is going to be super influencer who's just arrived, and Art by Tom Green is our guest. So I have just invited them both. Let's see if I can get this working or if Instagram's going to be the little bitch that it usually is. So let's go. Come on. Accept. Go live. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. Accept. Go live. So, Tom, did you get my invite that I sent? And Warpgate, did you get the invite also that I sent? And then let's see if we can get people going. So let me know in the chat if you got the invites, because I've both invited you. And hello, Pope Master. Raw to you too. Not yet. Okay, let's try again then. So let's cancel it and invite you again. So invited you again, Tom. Let me know if you get that. If not, send me an invite. It's just said Warpgate. There we go. You're in. How are you doing?
Yep. I was having a bit of a glitch, but now we're good. Yeah.
It's just that is just Instagram in general. I'm just trying to get Warpgate on. It keeps saying I've accepted his invite and go live, and then it doesn't do anything.
No.
Brilliant. You know, it's brilliant technology. I don't know where we'd be without it. There we go. Hey! Right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for stepping in. Casey just said he's going for a piss, so he should be here soon. He was running really late because he's got a leak in his bathroom. I don't think the leak he was talking about is his piss, but he said he is on his way. So thanks for joining us and thanks for stepping in, Walkgate. How are you both today?
Groovy, baby. Yeah, all good actually. If I keep looking to the side, I've got a resin pour on the go, so it's the most unstable thing in the universe, but it's there, and I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it because it's like a cork balanced on some cling film with a brush box and a paint pot on top to balance it all down. So try to create this thing at the moment, which is it's in my mind, but it's being made into reality. So
Straight away, we've got a question straight away from chat, and being as we've got two expert modelers and painters in the minute, we've got before we even get on to anything else, Pope Master says, "Do you have any tips for painting a walk skin?"
green.
Yeah, green, but might need a little bit more than that, lads.
Everyone's going to be different. I guess my recipe and everyone's recipe is going to be different. I think for me, I try and do everything as simple as possible to get it. Like it comes from the old batch painting days where you're like the minimum amount of coats for the maximum amount of like visual effect. So if you're painting for a tabletop, 3-stage highlighting, so you go with your darkest, like I don't even know paint names. I go with like a dark, like probably like a British racing green, color green. Depends on your manufacturer. Because I'm so like set in my ways. I kind of go with like a British racing green is like the one we'd all understand is like a dark leaf green, and then a mid green, and then like your highlight will be like almost yellowy green. I always think of there being two greens when you're mixing paint. There's a yellow green or a white green. A white green is going to give you a cooler, more matte effect, whereas the yellow green is going to give you a warmer effect, right? If you're an ink person, like I always do a base coat, then ink, then rebase coat. Then like with your second base coat over the ink, you're just trying to get the gloss off of it, but keep the depth of the recesses. So if your ink's a little bit darker than your base coat color, that's great because then you're going to get hits of the dark shadow areas are going to be more contrasty. Is the that's the technical term, right? Contrasty.
Contrasting.
But yeah, then bring it back. Bring it up, like, and then it's going to depend entirely. If it's tabletop standard, use those 3 shades. If it's like display standard, 5 to 8 to 10 to 35, I've heard shades to the highlight color. It really is going to depend on how you want it to look. If it's a display figure, yeah, go for it. Take it through all the shades of color up to yellow on the very finest. And it also depends on your dexterity. If you want, you're painting a 32mm figure up to tabletop standard, you can do it with 10 thumbs like I've got. But If you want it to look awesome, you want those nice slender piano players' fingers like Sam's got.
Hey now.
So
Hey now.
there's your piano player fingers, Sam. And Casey's just joined. That was the longest piss in the history of man.
Dude, I've got big old clunker hands. It ain't like I ain't got no little tiny little piano player hands. No.
No.
Oh.
Casey's on his side. Yep. Let's see.
So I'll start with a question then, Simon, if you want, for Tom. Tom, tell us about your journey into the hobby and when you started.
Hey, Casey. I started, so we had a little model shop, and I was that kid who probably got models well before I was old enough to get models, and it would be like Airfix were my entry into hobbying modelling, and I was that kid who'd try and paint them up. You know, you see like kids back in the day with model aircraft hanging from their ceilings on. Why I was like, I wanted that, and there's a lot of things I wanted when I was a kid that were never going to happen. That was one of them. So the model shop I used to go to was a place called Spot On Models in Cirencester in the southwest, just outside of Swindon. And Spot On Models had a bit of everything. The guy was a big steam buff, so he had like a lot of little like brass steam engines that would be running on his counter all the time, and that smell of hot brassy metal. I love that smell. To this day, that sparks instant memories of that shop. Like going in there and just staring at his cabinet like a 7-8-year-old kid. And he got a line of the original Lord of the Rings, D&D leadies, the lead-based models that you could draw with like a pencil, I found out. But my first model was a Orc Wolf Rider. And I was bit, man. I think that was pre-plastic, so I had like a metal shield and a metal spear that was like hooked like that because it was all like smashed about in the blister pack. And I must have painted that model about 30 damn times until I got the original Imperial Space Marine. Remember the Imperial Space Marine with the like downward posture?
Yeah, the original one. Yeah, the RTBO one.
Yeah,
not RTBO one. Yeah.
And they've reissued it since in resin, I think, but that was it. I was hooked 40 years ago. 48 now. I was 8 years old then, so that was my entry into the hobby. It's not been consistent. I did it as a kid until the other kids at high school found out. They're like, "Oh my god, you're a nerd," and then it became like fashionable for a little while. So I was like the cool nerd. And didn't get beaten up quite so badly on the school bus. And then I think I've dabbled all the way through my childhood, was the truth. I started with like Humbrol enamels, and then I think Humbrol made an acrylic line, and they tasted horrible. Everything's by taste with me. If it tastes all right, I'll keep painting with it. And then I think up until my adolescence, and then I met a guy, Simon Key. He was the guy who opened Colchester Games Workshop. So I'd moved to the south. Well, I'd moved north, and then I moved to the southwest. So up north, I was going to the Manchester Arndale Centre, and they had a Games Workshop in there. And I never gamed. I was always just into the models back then. I got Rogue Trader back in Cirencester, or Swindon was my Games Workshop then. I got Rogue Trader, and I got the original 30 Marine plastic box set, the stick together dudes, and man, they were awesome. I wish they still did that box. I'd love that. I'd buy that as a retro box set. They were so dope, so convertible as well. Like they were like the first plastic Marines that were half decent as well, you know. So yeah, I met Simon at Games Workshop Colchester. He opened that store, and with Games Workshop Norwich and Ipswich, they used to run the coach to Birmingham NEC for the Golden Demon. So like by then I'm like addled by what was possible within the hobby, and I had no direction. I had so many directions, and I'm sure every kid does with a new toy. Like my kid's like it with Dragon Ball. He needs this model, that model, this kit, that kit, and I was the same with Warhammer. I was fantasy. I was Warhammer Fantasy role play when that was the thing. I was 40k Rogue Trader, and damn, we tried to play that game and it wasn't playable. It was awesome. The book, the artwork, it grips you, it draws you in. So I think for me as a kid, I had dioramas in mind, scenes in mind. You have a picture of battle, and like to recreate just a snapshot of that battle is where I've ended up as an adult now. I think my first White Dwarf was White Dwarf 99, and that was when I think the Rogue Trader models came out, the metal Rogue Trader models. There was like 20 of them, and there was the female in powered armor figures. There was a few other Inquisition type figures and some Marines. So I got all the ones I could get and smashed them with hammers and turned them into pencils. And that's back. You're like, oh, why? Have since got like one or two of them back again. I'm like, oh man, these are like sacred now. These are, no one goes near them in my house. Yeah, that's how I got into it anyway. Sorry, I was like shouting away.
As viewers can probably tell from mine and Casey's attire and your and Sam's attire, you're not in the UK right now.
No,
this wasn't planned.
We're in hoodies and hats, and you guys are in t-shirts. So obviously you don't live in the UK anymore. Do you want to tell us that story? Are you in Texas? Whereabouts in Texas are you?
Yeah, well, just outside Houston, Space Center. So 2016. It's a sad story, but I will share it because I share it with everyone. It's my form of counselling, and I think that with like always in mind, like our hobby is full of people with mental health issues, and I'm sure every hobby is, but ours specifically because of, I don't know, the nature of it, maybe, I don't know, but so everyone's got a sad story to tell, or something that troubled them, or they were bullied, or they, everybody's got a sad story. So mine goes pretty much, I met my wife, that wasn't the sad bit. She was from here. She was from America. She'd been born in Calgary, moved around the States a lot, naturalized American, and then moved from Alaska to the UK with her then husband, who's a military guy. They separated, and when I met her, she was working in the local bar, to me, local pub, like a real ale pub. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I was never a big drinker back then until I met her. She caused it, but working behind a bar, being hot and actually talking to me, I'm like, wow, this is good. So 2-3 years later, we got together properly, got married. She got pregnant. We were having twins. Now we had the perfect pregnancy, no morning sickness, no nothing. When you're having identical twins, so we don't have them in the family, we have identical twins. The hospital won't let you do your way. They're not going to wait for you to start contractions or anything. They get you in on the day they tell you. So it's called elective C-sectioning. It's always going to be a C-section, and comes the time, and it's like she's getting a lot of pain that morning, and we're like, oh, it must be the right time. Neither of us had kids before, so we didn't know what was going on. We're at the hospital, and they're like, oh yeah, perfect timing. Look, we got you in at the right time. And they're kind of blowing their own trumpets, still moving people on in front of us. So we had our elected time, and they're looking on the paperwork and saying, oh, elective C-section, fine, they can wait. He's going, it's getting worse, this pain. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should ask someone. So the nurse comes in, it's still a lot of pain, maybe you should like have a listen, sticks the stethoscope on, and like the eyes change, but the demeanor doesn't. They're very calm when anything's going wrong. They don't like go, oh my God, because then you do, oh my God, and it's a knock-on effect. So we'd done prenatal classes. We knew that stuff wasn't always going to be running perfectly, but then they took her through quite swiftly. They were like, okay, you can come through now. And I walk into a room expecting, like they said, with twin births, there could be 12 to 13 people in the room. There was about 35 people in the room. The whole floor was red. And she didn't know what's going on. She's got a sheet from here covering what she can't see, because it's pretty gruesome. So I'm seeing my kids getting pulled out, and bumps started. And they basically, they don't really know what they put it down to was a placental abruption, where the placenta comes away early. They're deprived of oxygen for a period of time. Noah was worse than Ethan. He suffered severe oxygen deprivation, and he lasted for 11 days before we had to make the decision that no parent wants to make, and switch off life support and remove care. Ethan was better off. He had a full stop when he came out, but slowly was brought back and stuff kicked in. For a while, he wasn't choosing to breathe. Every time they took him off the ventilator, he was like, so they had to keep him on the ventilator for a while. But yeah, he kicked in, everything kicked in normal. Noah wasn't so lucky, and he passed away at 11 days, like I say. As you know, in the UK, you have one hospital, and that's the one you go to. So every time anything went wrong, accident, emergency, was the same building, and it like that sort of reminder you don't need. So we had a choice, I think, and the choice was move towns, move cities, and start somewhere new in the UK, or her mum and dad were always saying, come live here, we want you closer to us, And to be fair, we saw them more than we saw my own family, who were like 10 miles down the road. So it affects everyone differently, that sort of thing. I had great friends who I never spoke to since, just because they didn't know what to say, and it's like, it's tragic, you don't have to say anything, but we made the choice to fuck it, let's up sticks. We started the process of immigration, and like I think for me it was longer process. I think it used to be easier. I think you literally just turned up here, filled a bunch of paperwork out, and away you go. But when I was doing it, was just after 9/11 and the shoe bomber stuff, so it was all a bit more like, hey, we want to make sure you're really legit here, and they check. It's nice, they do it on an individual basis. So if you've got like previous convictions or anything like that, they take it into account on an individual level. It's not like, oh, you had weed, right? No weed people come in. Like, well, have you ceased to do such things? Have you been arrested since? And they do it on an individual level, but it's taking 2.5 years to go through the process, and the process is basically a money giving set up. So yeah, you give them enough money, and by the time they've taken all that they can, they then interview you, and you get a yay or a nay. And even with a no, you can still get in here. You just go through Canada and move down that way, but it takes longer. But yeah, you can go to Canada, get a Canadian passport as a British citizen still, and then scoot over the border as a Canadian citizen. And you're a Canadian citizen. Yeah, here's your American passport. They love taking part their people off of the Canadian still. So yeah, that's how we got here. So 2016 we landed in Texas, and it's been ideal, really. I mean, especially with lockdowns and stuff. I think we got a 6-week lockdown way back, 2020, and even then, my boss at the time, she was like, you can still come and work if you want. We've got the curtains up and the doors will be locked, so it'll be appointment only, but you can come and work. So really, we didn't have much of a lockdown, which was definitely a preferable thing, because when we landed here, I was the one who was doing the work. So
I think quite a few people have moved from the West Coast to Texas because they think they're finding California quite restrictive, and a lot of people moved around that time as well.
I think it's definitely a conservative thing to do. Like, right wing tend to want to come here because it's a very right wing area of the country as well, which for its benefits is great, for its negatives is terrible. But isn't that the same wherever you are? I was in the southeast in the UK, and that was very conservative area. I lived in some pretty blue villages, so yeah, I think it's the same here. You use it for what it's good for. That's what I learned from living in other countries: is use the system for how it benefits you, not concentrating on the negatives, because you're not going to beat the system on your own. You're going to use it for what it's good for and leave, or use it for what it's good for and stay, but to fight against the system. So yeah, we do have a lot of Cali people coming over here, and I understand, I'm liberal minded in the old sense of the word, but I'm also a bit older, and I think, well, I could change and try and accept everyone, but I don't have a huge friend group, so I don't need to really accommodate a lot of that kind of BS. I'm sure we know what I'm talking about. But yeah.
Well, just before I hand over to Casey, Hellchild in the chat says you make a better Tex than Tom anyway. And they've also said California's crazy. I was born there and got out as soon as possible. I have heard that, but off certain people on YouTube, but I've never been to California, so I couldn't tell you. Prime Minis says, though, what about Texas do you find most shocking?
It's funny actually. When I moved here, I wasn't expecting it to be far different. Like English speaking to English speaking, and we're all the majority of people are born and raised here, so I wasn't expecting it to be too different, but it is. It's very different. And do you know what? The funniest thing that I noticed was when they say everything's bigger in Texas, it legit is, because we live on a globe. So when you're up at the top of the globe, you're further from the sun, and when you're on the side of it, you're closer to the sun. So literally everything, the sun, the moon, the sky, is bigger here. Also, Texas, where I'm at, like I'm in the south, is very flat because we're on the run down to the ocean. So we're almost at zero above sea level here, maybe a couple 100 feet at the most. So the air's clear. It's a lot easier to breathe. And yeah, I mean, the simple geographic nature of the area is very flat. So you can see 30 miles in any direction. If you get up on an overpass, you can see like as far as the eye can. And it's that's when there's a curvature on the earth, when you can actually legit see it. The people are great. Like that was the thing for me was weird, and Sam will back me up on this. Like walking down the street, if I look at someone in the eye, they'll say, "Hey, how you doing?" Not "Fuck you looking at." Every time I had on me just for overlooking at someone in England compared to here, like I was weirded out. I was like, "How do they know me?" Like,
one thing I noticed, Tom, and I know you've had the same, is just walking down the road and waving at people. Everybody waves at everybody here, rather than giving them the bird, or like or anything like that. Like round in North London, you'd think someone's a bit of a nutcase waving at all of the traffic walking going by. But here, it's just honestly like it's just a way of life. A lot of the small town living in the States, they're like that. They're like, "Hi, how you doing?" Nice community feel. So.
It's a little bit like it's a little bit like Minnesota. They call it like it's a big city, but it's like little people, like a little town community, even though it's a massive city. I was in the bathroom at the Mall of America once, and I was wearing a Vikings top, Vikings NFL top, and it was the away top, so it was white with purple and gold. Now, obviously, the Vikings got their colours because the Lakers originally were in Minnesota. That's why they're called the Lakers, but then they moved to LA because there's no lake in LA. So I was sort of standing, just washing my hands in the bathroom. This huge black guy come in, and he just like, "Yo!" and I was like, "Oh shit!" Because straight away, I mean, I'm a small white guy, and this is a big black guy in America. I'm like, I've seen Boys in the Hood. This isn't going to end well for me. And he just saw the back of my top and thought it was a Lakers top, and he was originally from LA and just wanted to chat to me about basketball. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, people are quite friendly here, aren't they?" But it is that friendliness that you don't get. It's like if you walk into a bar in the States, they'll welcome you, they'll chat to you, they'll ask how you are. It isn't just a "what do you want?" When you go and get a drink, so it is really strange.
Yeah, it has to be super rural before they start like giving you the weird look when you walk through the door and the banjo stops, But there are those places, and they're kind of nearby still, because like Houston is spread out like every city does, So where I am now used to be fields behind me, and now there's housing complexes behind me, but it's still got that country village kind of attitude, and everyone wants to know everyone. Everyone wants to be in the business. I like that, but my wife doesn't. She hasn't seen my neighbour since they moved in. I'm straight over there. "Hey, how you doing?" I think there's security, and I think that sometimes I wonder if that's where the friendliness can come from, is people's insecurity and not knowing what the variables are with the person. So they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they want to know that you're going to say, "Hey, how you doing?" And be friendly rather than you know, because the ultimate thing here is someone could pull a gun on you, and you have to always bear that in mind. So if they know that you're not going to, and you're not one of those like crazies, they're happier. And then, you know, ice broken, really. You know, I'm friends. I know all the neighbours now, but yeah.
But the wife loves that then, that you're friendly with everyone, and she's just like, oh, no, not for
No,
me.
she's funny. Like, I think that's a self-defense mechanism in her. So I don't need them knowing my business, and I'm like, I'd rather they did know my business. Keep guns. So one of them does. You know, I know they'll be looking after my place when I'm on vacation or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of nice to know that there's gun-toting fools around me, but I don't need to act because I'm a shocking shot with a gun. I really am.
Not a proper Texan then yet.
No, gosh, no. I think that's my USP. My selling point is that I'm not a straight Texan. No, you haven't lost the
So,
accent. I'll never lose the accent.
no, you never lose the accents. Never lose the accent. Just going back to the hobby stuff for the moment. Obviously, like you say, you get moving from here to there, 2016. How did you find the change in like all the, you know, trying to get a hold of stuff? Because obviously, when we've spoken to Sam before, he's talked about distance between going to shops and trying to get a hold of gear and all of that sort of stuff. What did you sort of find? How did you find all of that?
I'm so lucky, actually. Where I'm at, I've got like 4 or 5 local gaming stores. I've got actually 2 gaming workshops that are almost equidistant from me, and that's like a 10-minute drive up the road. So for some reason, they franchised out here really well. Compared, I know people who drive 4 or 5 hours to get to a physical store, because I like to shop in a physical store as well. Like, I could order online, but I do prefer. The thing was, I probably stopped painting much more than once a month, if that, in the UK. So when I moved here, you know, my pile of shame in the UK stayed there. I think they're like in my dad's attic still. All old lead stuff mainly. You know, there were little bits and bobs of plastic. The plastic wasn't up to that sort of standard yet, and then fine cast had come out, and I was like, I'm swerving that like you wouldn't believe. It was the worst, without over labouring the point. We all know how bad that was. So I kind of moved here with nothing, and I'm like, and it was the pandemic, like so many people. I picked back up again, and I'm like, oh, wonder what there is nearby, and looked. I'm like, oh wow, there is, you know, there's a games workshop over there. Let's pop over. I picked up, and I was looking. I'm like, where are the blister packs? He's like, what? You know, those anymore. Like, I'm coming in from the past or something, you know. Like, oh shoot, okay, right. What's the deal? He's like, everything's plastic now. I'm like, okay. So I used to work. I didn't really finish up. When I met Simon from Games Workshop Colchester, he was painting commission work for people, and he asked me one time, "Hey, will you come and give me a hand? I know you can paint up to a decent enough level. Will you come and give me a hand?" So we're mainly doing like character figures and conversions and lead conversion or pewter conversions. They were difficult, man. Like, you needed some like serious toolage, right? And like shaving it, like my fingers were in bits. Like, I very rarely nick myself these days, but my fingers were severed to ribbons back then. So like trying to shave lead and hacking into your thumbs or your fingers and like slipping and slicing chunks off. Like, lead was a difficult thing to convert, and like obviously bigger models you had to drill and pin. So I learned a lot of those techniques working on like one model for a whole day. So when I got the plastic models, and I'm like, oh shoot, maybe I should drill and pin these. It's only like a smooth surface area contact, so maybe I should drill and pin it. It's like, oh, well, that was easy. Hold on, if I can do that, what else can I do? So I got myself an X-Acto knife and a pin drill, and obviously that's slowly expanded into a full desk and toolage setup. But yeah, when I moved here was when I really started getting. It's funny, I consider that I spent all those years in the hobby, but I think only really in the last 3 years I actually really pushed myself to learn more. So since landing here, and my wife as well, I think a lot of the time over in the UK, I was like, I'll pick it up again. just not yet. I haven't got the time, and like we just had the kids, so yeah, I was like, it was easy to put it on the back burner. It was always on the never, never. It was never like, oh, I'm not doing that again. It was always like, when I get old enough that people can't say piss out of me for doing it, that's when I'll pick it up again. So, like during the pandemic, I was like, I've got to have something to do. I love my family, I love them to bits, but I need something just to occupy my hands, my mind. That's not fucking Netflix. So yeah, when I got here, yeah, I'm lucky. Where I'm at, it's really well connected to local game shops, and everyone really wants to help you out as well, you know. So yeah, it was kind of an easy transition. I mean, where I was in Colchester, I had the Games Workshop right there, and then moving here, I've got one just around the corner as well. So it's nice. It's changed a lot, it has, but I think in a good way. And I think like the thing I noticed the most though is global connectivity. They were, like when we were doing commission stuff, we would go into local game shops, like and a lot of the and games clubs. Sorry, a lot of them were like Napoleonic type games clubs, like Starfleet battles and stuff like that. These really weird old dudes who are into like perfectly painted Napoleonic 15mm and stuff. So we'd get armies of these like hundreds of Napoleonic characters that had to be painted perfect colours. So like colour analysis was really big and important thing back then. But you know, you had to go to the library to get the books to source the colour schemes for these armies. So Simon had fucking huge bookshelves just full of like military dress code and such. Fascinating, but it's all completely useless now because I can Google that.
Yeah.
So, Tom, you were talking about like the amount of conversion work you were doing and manipulating models and how easy it is with the plastic. If anybody kind of checks out your Instagram at the moment, I know because I know you pretty well now, but your style is very like Roman Lepat style kind of dioramas that you like doing, and you really go like balls deep into dioramas and converting models, complete conversions and like battle scenes and those sorts of things. What and who are your kind of influences on that? Where did that originate from, and why are you not kind of the run-of-the-mill army painter? Did you like just get fed up with painting armies and you just thought, I'm going to do dioramas? Where's that whole like push come from for you?
Yeah, nice question, man. Yeah, Roman, you mentioned, like he really is. I love his stuff, but I wanted to do it a little bit different because everything he does looks like a two-dimensional painting, and I love that. I think it looks great. It looks, and he builds it and then paints it. I build it, take it apart, and paint it, and then put it back together again. So everything I've got is, you could take it off and use it as a gaming piece. If you wanted to break the super glue, you could do that. And I think that's really where we differ. And he's very nice. He paints beautiful backdrops, which is something really new to me. I'm not a two-dimensional painter. Reason I don't do armies is exactly like you said. I fell out of love with it. When I was working with Simon, the last order we got was Chaos Dwarfs, back when Chaos Dwarfs were a thing. And we had 2,000 infantry to paint, and they were in red, green, blue, and purple. That was the colours. And I sat for months painting these things. They're in this giant box underneath the table, and every day we pick out 5 more and start to paint them. And my soul was destroyed. I turned a hobby into a job, and I did it the wrong way. I wasn't being fussy about what I did and didn't do. So we got orders, and you got what, you know, you took what you got back then, because there wasn't a lot, you know, there weren't people from Japan hitting you up to go, hey, can you do this character figure for $200, or can you convert this for me, or can you like make a head into a half skull half head type thing. You had just, you got what you were given and you did it, and you made, you know, a little bit of money out of it. It wasn't well paid back then either. So yeah, I fell out of love with it, and that was, like, drove me away from the hobby for a long time. Just couldn't face looking at it, you know. So what I do now is I'm kind of recreating what I would love to have done when I was a kid and couldn't afford it, you know, saving up pocket money to buy one blister pack every month that I was loved. But now, like, that disposable income where I can go, well, I'm going to buy a big bunch of frames from Goodwill, and I'm going to see what I can look at in my massive pile of shame. My pile, every Warhammer kid's wet dream as well. It's disgusting. I hate myself for what I own. In the pub, looked at me and gone, "You asshole! Look at all those beautiful minis that are getting painted." So yeah, I got Gabriel, I got Ragnar, I got the chaplain on a motorbike. I got I got 100 figures on my. I got a walk-in wardrobe full of grey, and it's great because like I'm not short of something to do at any time, and I think that's the danger. Like for me, I realise what the type of person I am. If I fall out of love with what I'm doing while I'm doing it, I won't do it, and I'll walk past the room it's sat in, not doing it, and looking at it, going, "Oh, I can't face that," and it'll be huge amounts of time not hobbying. But what I have to do for my sanity and for the fun of it, I have a lot of things to do. So I'm never doing just one mini. I've got one I'm painting. I've got 3 over there that I've like got green stuff on at the moment that's still grey. Like I say, I've got a resin set up that I'm pouring for a frame diorama that I'm kind of thinking about. And then behind me, I've got another one. This is like, this is going to be the next big one. So I did a big one before. This is going to be the next big one. This is like, this is going to be a 12 frame 3D kind of heaven and hell kind of thing. I've got some minis I'm sourcing from, Raging Heroes in France. Yeah, they make the most beautiful proxy models for Sisters of Battle. So they've got some like angelic ones with the feathered wings I'm going to have coming down ways, and then some demonic kind of batwing type ones coming up a ways, and make a whole battle scene with backdrop on that. So that's in the offing as well. So I need that ADHD type of workspace. I can't I respect anyone who's like, I'm doing this model, and until it's done, I'm not even going to look at the next one. That's like, wow. Wish I could have that organised level of brain, but I just don't. I'm like I say, it's ADHD without the diagnosis. It's unmedicated.
I think I just get bored. I've got like work in progress over there, grey minis over there. I just get bored and go, oh, I wanted that instead today. And then I don't get as many projects finished. The latest stuff that I've been finishing is the Elements of Power ones that I got, but that's because they're this big.
Yeah, I saw that.
So you can get them done in like 2 hours and go, right, I've achieved something today. Now I can go back to procrastinating on something else.
I do the same thing. So I'll often take my little travel box to work, and it's got the paints I need, my wet palette that travels, and I can sit at work if I'm not tattooing. I can do that and paint. So it's a nice little space, and yeah, I've always got a couple of hours in the day when I can just sit and like put brush model, and that's nice. And I've got, like you say, I've got like a bunch of these like kind of more basic models. Some of the Station Forge Mechanicum proxy models are really paint. They're not a bunch of colours, just the standard ones, like your reds and your metallics. They're really nice. You can bang one out and knock one out in a couple of hours, like you say, and that's nice. It's a kind of palette cleanser almost. And I'll do that. Yeah. Between dioramas, I'll do that as well. I've always got a diorama on the go. I think I did like 6 or 7 last year, which I look back and I'm like, damn, really? They seem to take longer, but then I guess they come to completion and like there's overlaps. The last big one I was doing, I was like, I've got one little bit to do, and let me get started on this next one. So yeah, I'll finish that one now. But
so you're doing obviously dioramas and the art side of things is big. Do you still roll dice and anger at all in any type of games, or are you just in it for the art right now?
Actually, I'm trying to get my son into it. So we got Kill Team. We bought a set with the orcs and the guard. That's fun. It was reminiscent of Necromunda. I was never a big tabletop gamer. It was always I always would love the idea of having an army that was big enough to field, but I've never. I've got my Space Marine army that I'm slowly kind of getting towards a point where they're almost. I've got a command squad and most of a unit painted and a outrider, but really I have no vision of that finishing anytime soon. But so Kill Team was good for me because they're such like individual little character figures within the box. They were fun, and I need that stimulus. And I also used them to learn like non-metallic metal techniques. So that's the other thing I'm doing with my tabletop army. My 40k army is trying to do them all non-metallic metal, just because I hate myself. So why not? Yeah, time consuming, but I like them to look as good as, you know, so they can sit in my cabinet and I can look at them and go, oh, that's cool. But yeah, gaming wise, I was a mad fan of Necromunda, like first edition. I haven't played the second edition yet. But yeah, that was awesome because I like the kind of campaign nature, the character progression where, you know, your dudes got tougher as you gained more, they could die, or, you know, that kind of, that flicked my switch. I think there's an anonymity to tabletop gaming with just squads and squads of dudes that you don't really get into the character of them that much, and I like that. So yeah, Kill Team, you kind of get a feel for the dudes because they've all got like a little bit of character. It's a bit like Platoon, the movie, compared to Full Metal Jacket, the movie, where everyone's so different in Platoon that you kind of get a real like heart for them. Where in Full Metal Jacket, you're not Menu, they're grunts, and like grunts die, and so involved in the character of them. And I think that's probably like, if you wanted a movie description of the difference between 40k and Kill Team, it would be that, you know, you get into your characters and you can do campaign stuff with them. So yeah, those kind of games appeal to me. And I think for my kid, he's very like most kids these days, like sits in front of the screen all day. That's his like his instant gratification. So he needs something that's kind of quick. And you can knock out a game of Kill Team in an hour, and you know, or you could get more involved and maybe spread out the scenery a little bit more and make it last longer. But he was kind of into it because Dad's into it. I think that's always going to be the way. It's not his thing, but he likes that we can do something together with him. He's 12 now, so it's getting to the age where he's interested enough to be able to like retain knowledge, and I can't cheat anymore. He'll be like, no, Dad, that's not how it works, is it? I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah,
I know adults who are like that, to be fair. I think you'll find if you look at this rule. Yeah, I think what you said about Cult Team, Necromunda will probably. I mean, I play Necromunda the new version, and that probably you can customize everybody, stick bits of kit on as they progress. The only downside I think to those kind of games is the fact that you've built this character up, you've named them, you've kitted them up, you've watched them through campaigns, you've now formed an emotional attachment, and then you roll that skull dice on the injury, and you just broke. You've broken. You've just lost a cherished friend. It isn't good.
It was like
Causes you emotional damage.
It was like that in the original, you know, because we were just playing with friends. It was more like, go on, you can re-roll it. And if you rolled it twice, and you're like, sorry, mate, he's coming back. But he's a new character, all right.
When you're not painting and playing Kill Team and being told off by your son for cheating, what is it? What do you like to do? What do you relax to? What kind of stuff do you do to relax?
Well, we bought a house here, so instead of the list of stuff I need to do around the house getting shorter, it gets longer. And you'll find that if you know when you buy a house, it's like there's always a list of shit to do. So I spend a lot of time doing that. I was in construction for like 15, 20 years in the UK. So rather than pay anyone to do anything, I do it myself. So we refitted our kitchen. I'm not talking about things I do to relax, am I? But yeah, at the moment I'm building a table, which is going to be a resin top table when I can afford the fucking $1,500 the resin's going to cost me. But yeah, that was a tree trunk that we rescued from around the corner, and yeah, that's getting sanded down and ground down with my 4.5-inch grinder. That's I enjoy that sort of work. It relaxes me. So when we were refitting our kitchen, we pulled out the Formica worktops and did concrete. So poured the concrete for those and made the forms. And that's kind of like I like that mental relaxation. But hobbies other than this, I tattoo for a living. So that's like a lot of art and drawing. But this is what I do. Like the hobby is what I do to kind of get away from just drawing, because anything you will fall out of love with it if you just do that.
Yeah.
And my wife's a yoga instructor, so for years she was like, "You need to come and do yoga," and I was like, "Yoga is for homosexuals and girls, and it's easy. I'm not medicated there yet. It's not easy, and it's not all girls. So I was on all 3 counts, and it's really, really good for me. Last year before maybe, I was getting some gut pain. Wasn't feeling like I was digesting properly. Something wasn't right, so I went for some scans on my stomach. Nothing there, and scanned on my chest. And I was like, I'd already decided, right, I'm going to not drinking on the head for the now, just to see if that helps. It helps a little bit, and I stopped smoking cigarettes, stopped smoking weed, and that helped a bit more actually. And I'm like, okay, well that's good. But then I went for some chest scans. I found out I've got emphysema and heart disease. So I'm like, oh great, I really fucked myself up, and it's all my own fault. No one needs to be sorry for me. I did smoke myself into oblivion and learn my lesson. And yoga has been the thing that's really brought me back to health. My lung capacity is better than it ever was. My health is, my heart health is a lot better than it was. I'm not a medication type of person. I'll always look for the non-medicinal or, supplements that are going to help me. So yeah, it's good for research purposes. So I've got into the yoga, got into the lifestyle now. So I probably practice like 5 times a week now. My wife's the teacher of most of those classes, which is great. But nonetheless, I do that anyway, and I would still carry on doing it if it wasn't for her, to be honest. But mountain biking's been a big thing. It's difficult to do where there's no mountains, but we go on we do like 3 vacations a year. We'll do a hot vacation, which will be lying around on a beach on the Gulf Coast, and then in the spring and in the autumn we'll go and do like a national park where we can set up a tent and camp out. We'll take the bikes and we'll do like a mountain bike friendly park, because state parks here are phenomenal, and a lot of them have got like really well manicured trails and stuff, so that's really fun. We enjoy doing that. My wife's an Olympic lifter, so we'll often go and follow her around the country to various competitions, and so she's posting silver at national level now. So she's a mean bitch, man. She's serious though, because given my opportunity, I sit on my ass and do fuck all. I'm happy doing it. I'm really comfortable doing that. She is always looking for something to do, and I think like the two of us, I can help her relax, and she helps me motivate myself. So we're a good team in that sense, and you've got to appreciate your differences, not fight against your differences with any people in your life. I think if they're going to stay in your life, they need to be. You need to be a benefit to each other. And I think that's the father's role as well, because how many people we know who are single parents, like there isn't a necessity for a father figure these days, or a mother figure. You can be brought up by one or the other. But I think if you're in a partnership, it should be that, and you create a role for yourself within that unit, and the more you can then benefit each other. So that's like, we all stay happy through our differences, I think. Equilibrium there, and I've embraced the yoga, but I still let her get off and do her own thing. And she, for me as well, there's no like, oh, you're doing that, are you? Or that, where you shouldn't be, but you really want to do it, and you get shit later for it. I don't get that, which is awesome.
That's the lucky thing, that you don't get that shit, because I can do all the jobs under the sun. I can do, like today I've been doing odd jobs. I've been helping them leak upstairs, and even ends up going on Instagram or that's that's my problem. You also got one other person thing that yoga's for, and that's for Dalsim, because he can't throw fireballs out of his mouth or teleport without the yoga.
That's so I was thinking as well when he said that. I was going Street 5. He did yoga.
So you get good. You can start levitating about. So
that is my son's current favourite game at the moment. Actually, I'm not even shitting you. He's been Street Fighter earlier today. He's just bought the anniversary set or some shit off of Nintendo.com, and like all the versions. But it's like, Dad, there was a version on PC. I need to get that. He's like me. He needs every version. Like if I'm getting into music, I'll have every CD by that band, or every download I can find. He's the same with games. So but he loves retro games. Like, I don't know where that came from. So I'm like, don't you want the one with the awesome graphics? He's like, no, I want Mega Man. All right. Sweet.
You've got to respect that. You've got to respect that. A kid that wants to play Mega Man, which is now, I could show my son Mega Man, he'd be like, I'm died. I'm not playing that ever again. So,
The graphics.
fair play.
Yeah.
My lad doesn't care about graphics. He's just more frustrated, and I can't press this, and it's not doing what I want. But yeah. No, he's an idiot. With all your projects that you're sort of detailing off, or your work that you do, what sort of drives you as the inspiration for it? I mean, even just where you commented on a minute ago, the table that you're making. What's your thought process behind everything that you do? Even if, I suppose the project that you showed us there with your heaven and hell. How does your mind work with those sort of little things? Because it's always interesting trying to get into the gears and how the cogs turn and all of that sort of stuff on there when we talk to people.
Deep, though. That is a deep question. Without with a shallow attitude towards a very deep question. I don't know, but I do know that I have notes on my phone, and I use that, and I have streams and pages of ideas, and I write them down when because I know what I do, and I know that materials and using materials aren't an issue for me. I can do anything that I envision to some degree. I always start. I wrote a PDF just the other day that I posted on my Etsy shop, but it's with like the diorama building in mind. And what I realise is it's not just that simple for everyone. But having been in construction, everything I do in dioramas is like a miniaturisation of that. So if I need like steps, I know how to make a little concrete form and make a little set of concrete or plaster steps or whatever. So like the physical aspect of it isn't the complicated bit. So if I can picture it in my mind, I can recreate it in like a physical way. So writing stuff down, notes are so important for that, because who doesn't have wouldn't that look cool? Write it down. If you think about it, write it down. And if it stays as a cool idea, make it. And there's a short list that I'll work my way down. I'm like, what was I even thinking when I wrote that? That's bullshit, and I'll scratch that one, I delete that one. But yeah, notes have really helped with that, because I think from the old weed days where you think of this great idea and you're wasted, and then by the time you sobered up, you're like, what was that thing we were talking about that was fucking awesome? And I don't know. So yeah, with that knowledge in mind that I completely blasted my short-term memory to pieces, I write it down. I should do it with more aspects of my life, and I'd be far more organised, and a lot more shit would get done. But with the hobby stuff, that's what I have to do, because quite often those ideas come when you're laying down in bed at night.
Yeah.
I'll be reading. I'm reading all the Games Workshop novels for the nth time, and working my way through. Oh, lovely! I'm getting shown a Naruto in the corner over there. Sorry. So. Right, yeah, the written notes help. I'm laying in bed reading, and I'm like, that would make a cool scene. So a lot of stuff is inspired by true scenes. I see other people doing the same thing. I see Dusty Paintpots, he's making a diorama of the Emperor fighting Horus in like the original artwork style. I'm like, that's awesome. And someone else is doing like the pyramid with the golden throne on it. I'm like, equally, but yeah, I love those sort of the older Blanchitsu type artwork, and like creating those. Like, it's not my style, but I love when I see people do that, recreating. And like, there was a guy who did a scene of orcs recently that was done in an old Rembrandt painting, I believe, but he's recreated it with orcs. I'm like, whoa, that's just thinking outside the box, man. That's crazy. So everything, like, I don't want to steal ideas off of people, but there's what they say, there's no such thing as original art. I think what you can do is take aspects of other people's ideas and make them your own. So I've done some like frames which kind of turn into roots, where you chop the frame and you bond a set of old roots onto it, and then build a scene within that. I think they came from Roman LaPlatte's ideas with the frame dioramas, and then there's a guy called Fusion Frames who makes these amazing bonded frames, so the frame turns into roots of a tree, and he sells just the frame with no image inside of it. I'm like, well, there's a middle ground right there. I can exploit that, But yeah, the machinations of your mind, it's funny, like some of the ideas I've had, I'm like, I don't even think of that, you know. And I was mad into Legion of the Damned when I was a kid. They were my shit. That was the first White Dwarf I got, and that's where they were introduced. It's like the Firehawks becoming Legion of the Damned as the lost chapter, lost in the warp, and came back at some point in their fortress monastery, and then thusly the Legion were born. I'd always wanted a Legion of the Damned army back when it was actually fieldable. I don't think you can field them. I think you can field them as a special unit now, but yeah, the Legion were my thing. So when I got my first plastic minis, I'm like, I'm going to convert these. I'm going to make these into Legion. I'm going to carve this leg into bones and carve a cape. For some reason, managed to carve a cape into bones and shit. So, yeah, where those ideas come from that's an interesting question, man. Like, I'd like to analyse my mind deeper in that sense, but just having a general, like, I think we forget. You know, I'm 48, so I've seen a lot of movies and I've seen a lot of artwork, and I don't limit myself to one style of artwork. And being in tattooing, you get to see a lot of different kind of macabre images and that sort of stuff, you know. And I was always in the macabre way when I was a kid, so I think that kind of definitely fuels that side of my creativity. But yeah, not limiting yourself as well to aiming to, I could do that, but I can't use that. You know, learn it. Like, that was something I promised myself last year. It was like, this year, in 2022, I'm going to try a bunch of stuff I've not tried before, stuff I've avoided, like non-metallic metal and resin and OSL and shit like that. And it's, you know, it's a work in progress in my experience. Like everything is, you know, you're always going to get better at doing it. But, you know, don't not try something because you don't think you'll be any good at it. We don't ever start good at walking. We fall over a lot. But, you know, you don't know many 35-year-olds that can't do it if they've got the power of their legs. So, yeah, I think with anything, just keep trying to do it. So materials-wise, you know, I use it in my dioramas, like, they do tend to need special supports if they're getting put on the walls because they've all got concrete in them and stuff. But I agree, it's going to be $300 to ship 2 kilos of concrete across country, but
And just following on from that, what would you say is your standout piece? What's your favourite out of everything you've done?
So far, it is actually the last one I've done. It was Blood Angels versus Chaos. It was a really open remit I got from a client who further cancelled on me and said, hey, can we put the diorama on hold? I'm like, I'm sorry, no, this one's rolling, baby. I'm invested in it. And I had other people invested in it. People ask, hey, how's it going on the diorama? And people, the guys at work, they'll follow me on Instagram as well. And they're like, oh, we saw what you're doing. That looks so cool. And like, so when she said, oh, you know, financial stuff's come up, can we quit it? Can we put it on hold? I was like, I'm really sorry. You can get in touch and do another commission later in the year, but that doesn't get put on hold. It's getting built. So it was with Dante as the main character, and a little pack of Blood Angels below him fighting some Nurgle dudes. I always liked Death Watch as well. I thought if I was going to do a Chaos Army, it'd be Death Watch. They're fun. They're rotten. You can't really go wrong with them. It's a bit like trying to draw a tree. You can't really go wrong with a tree, you know. Whereas if you try to draw a house, you can get your lines all squiffy. That's how nature is. And I think I like that kind of organic nature to the Death Guard. Sorry. So yeah, I thought those make a perfect crossover. So yeah, I don't know how that came to mind, how it was going to go, but I had a frame that I'd made for a mirror that I'd never put together. I'm like, that looks really cool. It's like a church window, you know. I'll see if I can find it real quick. I think it's one of the few ones I still have here. Bear with me. 2 seconds.
Do you love an interactive chat?
Dunk's in the chat, everybody. If you'd just like to say hello to Dunk, just to acknowledge he's there.
So
Yeah.
Little Dante chap, yep, coming down, pinned up in the back there. But yeah, I just wanted to get it. Let's see, give you a little scan across. But that one definitely my favourite so far. Weighs a goddamn ton because there's a kilo and a half of concrete in the bottom of it, which is cool. I overbuild everything. I think I described it in my tutorial. I overbuild everything, so I know cross country, and you can kick that into the back of a post van, and it's going to be fine. Break your foot, but yeah, it'll be fine.
Put on it, yeah.
So Tom, my last question for you, and it's one that I've kind of wanted to try and get you on one of my streams and ask you, is the fact that with your tattooing and your painting, is there any transferable skills that you've learned from your painting that you've brought to your tattooing, but also stuff that you've learned through your tattooing that you've brought back to your painting?
It works both ways, definitely. They're the two most similar art forms I've ever found, and it seems weird, right? But yeah, I've chatted with Pikey Dave Tattooer about that. Actually, he does models and wargaming as well, and we both said how similar the two things are. Not in application, not like the physical side of it, but the color theory. So a miniature doesn't create its own light, and it doesn't create much of its own shadow. So if you painted it one color of red, it's not going to look as great as if you painted like the recesses back to brown and then brought up the body of the red and then like the edge highlight and such. It's going to look three-dimensional, and it's exactly the same with a tattoo. A tattoo's like the canvas you're putting it on has moderate curvature, but it doesn't create its own shadow. So color-wise, you have to do your dark shadow recesses and then your highlight colors and your mid colors. And colours work in the same way. So certain colours are very obviously what they are, like green from black all the way to yellow is green, and it's very clearly green. And you can adjust like how dark that green is by bringing the darkness outways, or how bright it is by how much you bring the highlight innerways. Whereas a colour like black is black. It only has a very, very small edge, which is going to differ, and that's the highest of the highest points. It can't be any darker, and that the highest of the high point will be either a blue or a grey, even to like a tip of white. But you give it too much, it becomes grey or it becomes blue. So every colour has a different way of working, and that's the same in tattooing. You know, you do black, it's just black, and then you might leave like a very light edge where the skin shows through, and that gives it its highlight. And it's, yeah, they're the two most similar art forms I've ever tried, although in application completely different. The tools are different, but tattooing isn't like anything, to be fair. Painting is, and sculpture and such. So there are things, different art forms you could bring to model making that don't really refer at all to tattooing. It's a bit like this and a bit like that, but it's not like painting. It's funny. And every canvas is different, which is similar as well. Every mini is canvas I tattoo is different. From the top of my body to the bottom of it, my skin differs in texture and thickness and colour as well. So it's always, you know, colour's a reflection. So tattoo onto someone is going through a filter as such. So it's not quite as simple. You know, it's the same with your mini as well. If you do it like a black undercoat, it's going to have a different reflection than if you gave it a white undercoat. White undercoated minis are going to be much brighter by their nature. It's much harder to get them to look dark in areas, whereas a black mini is hard to get bright. You know, so you know, there's always going to be some of that undercolor showing through. It's why we can't paint yellow over black, because it goes green. So yeah. There are a lot of similarities, though. You know, the more you analyse what you do, so I've always been analytical. So yeah, I always want to understand why something does something the way it does it, and that makes, yeah, it's definitely an interesting crossover that I never expected. That's the truth. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this because I do that. It just was a happy happenstance that the two things do have similarities. I think each has helped me improve on the other as well, in truth, which is interesting. That's why it's so fun to tattoo Warhammer stuff. You don't get many Warhammer tattoos, but when they do creep out of the basements and shave the beards, they...
So as we draw near to the close, I'm going to do the quick fire round. Dunk's in chat. I was going to do a really crap Scottish accent, just so when he watched it back to see how far he watched it.
I think you should still do it, Simon. I think you
Yeah,
should still have a go.
just do it. He can't come in here and tell you off,
Yeah.
so do it.
But he can phone me later and go off his head at me. So I was going to do the Boltstone Wargaming plug where he goes, all your bolts, your stones, and your games.
He's actually asking any advice for any upper...
Yeah, he has asked the question, any advice for any up-and-coming players?
I do actually, yeah. Start simple, because I only restarted back 3 years ago, 4 years now. But start simple, and learn colour theory. So colour theory is like one of the most important and easy things to do. Like you get a colour wheel from, you can download them off of Google. You get a colour wheel and see what colours make up each other, because you don't need many paints. Like I'd love to have, like Sam has walls of paints, I'd love to have that, but I just don't have the space. And I'm also such a tight-fisted bastard that like one brush and 20 paints, that'll do me, because I'm not going to give a shot my money. So yeah, start simple. You don't need an awful lot to get going. Like I say, one brush is all I use. I use a size 1 Winsor & Newton for everything. That's my personal preference. There are a million great brush companies out there. And so you need black, you need white. Gloss or matte is up to you, because you can always dull them down with a matte varnish if you go for gloss. You need a blue, a yellow, a red. You need probably a green. But other than that, you can make every other colour off of those. So anything extra is a bonus. It's going to save you time. But if you just want to get started, you just want to get paint on plastic, do it. I used to prime with watered down black paint and a big brush, and just keep moving it around until the bubbles went away. And that's how I used to prime my minis. And like when spray primer came out, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's changed my life. Sorry. Can't hate a dude with a puppy. Yeah, let's start simple. So one craft knife. This is the one I use for all of everything that I cut or model, was done with this originally. It's an exact knife with the gold ferrule. So it means basically it's got a metal insert, not metal insert hold blade, not a plastic insert hold blade. Plastic knives don't last very long, where it's lasted me for 3 years, and it's never changed its quality. It's awesome. Blades wise, I go on Amazon, I get 1,000 blades for 10-15 bucks. Cheap and easy. 2 types of glue. You need polystyrene cement, super glue. Super glue for resin, polystyrene cement for plastic, and that is it, man. And anything else is a bonus, but I'm a great one for repurposing. So I made my own wet palette. Wet palettes, like, that'll change your game. If you're just starting out, wet palettes, great. But make your own, because the Masterson's one I spent stupid money on isn't airtight. The one I made out of a Tupperware kept my paint alive for 6 months. Yeah, right. I opened it up and everything was still as wet as when I put it in there, because it's airtight and it's not going anywhere. It might steam up, but it condenses again, you know. So sponge wrapped in kitchen paper, parchment paper, whatever you call it, baking paper, sponges, slot them in, fill it up with water, squeeze the excess off, stick your lid on. It's cheap as chips, you know. Just go. I always go for the cheapest option. Same with materials. I don't buy basing materials. I go out in my yard and find basing materials. I use building sand, you know. I use a piece of wood that I found, and I've learned to bake it, because one of my dioramas was roots coming off the bottom of a frame. And every day I got to work and there was a little heap of sawdust underneath it, where there was a little woodworm inside. So it's a living diorama. So yeah, maybe bake your wood, actually put it on your bases. But yeah, keep it cheap and keep it easy. The simplest methods are often the best.
So quick fire questions then. Favourite type of crisp or chip, potato chip, as you know in the US?
I'm so confused by that now. I'm like, ones I miss the most, this is going to sound gross, are skips. Can't get them here, man. Skips. Salt and vinegar disco. Salt and vinegar discos that were like, it was like the paint stripper of the vinegar world. Where, like, if you put it between
your skin off the top of your mouth.
That's the shit, mate. Yeah, Pringles used to be like that, and then they changed them. Like, nah. So yeah, salt and vinegar is my flavour. But Lay's over here, Walker's over there, I guess. But yeah, discos, they were great. I do love skips a fucking rank, says Dunk. I know, that's the weird thing, but you know, you miss some of the weirdest shit. Like, I miss baked beans because I don't get them very often, and if I was going to, they'd be like $5 a can. So I'm like, I'm not spending that. to remember that they were just full of sugar.
And if Dunk was here, he'd say, "I hate the Beatles." So Beatles, you a fan or do you hate them like me?
I can't buy them. No, can't stand the Beatles, mate. I was brought up like by hippie parents who didn't like the Beatles because they were like the OG boy band. They're like, oh, the Beatles. All I can do is appreciate them for their music knowledge. So they learned that playing an F in the 15th was like mentally conducive. So what they knew about music theory was fascinating, actually. It's like the same theory as like 5 to 7 yields or 17 hertz is earth rhythm and will send you into a transcendental state. It's that kind of music knowledge that I find interesting, but I don't like them. No.
And I'll bring back a really old school question, because I think I think you'll take it because you're my age group, you're the same generation as me. Fulgrim, nonce or not nonce?
Mega pedo.
Yeah.
Come on.
Fair enough.
That's fair enough. You can't really argue with that. It reminds me of, you see the YouTube video where the guy's walking down the street and he's talking about when he's like in his 60s or 70s. He's going, "In my day, we called them pedos." Go, grandnotes, you can't say that.
Right. It's funny though, we often, it's one of those chats that comes up quite regularly on feeds and stuff. It's like, you know, the whole pedo thing. Oh, do you remember back in the day when there was a dude in the village that you shouldn't talk to? Like, and this is like, it's progressed to the like, no, you know, don't go on that website. Like, all the famous ones or the presidents of pedo, yeah, but yeah, it's progressed, but it's never gone away and it's never not been there, I'm sure. But something that fascinates me and still is a question in mind is like the sort of asexual nature of space marines in general until you get to like Slanesh. And it's like, okay, right, we've got a little niche in the corner where if you're a sexual person, but the rest of us are all just neckbeards who live in our mum and dad's basement, don't you be bringing up sex with us because we don't know what it is. We don't think we like it. But yeah, it was sort of kind of like the sexual aspect. So space marines asexual, are they, or is it just something that will never be written?
Well,
it's the great unspoken.
Well, space wolves in law, space wolves fuck.
Oh, really?
But
each other, or?
And they get drunk. They're like the hooligans of the space marine world. They get pissed and they have sex. But they're the only ones that do, apparently. So it's very unusual. So if you're a Space Wolves fan, I'm not a neckbeard. I have Space Wolves because they have sex and they drink beer. So that brings me on to the last question. Before I see if Casey and Sam want to just chip in before we go. Female Space Marines, are you pro female Space Marines? Are you against female Space Marines? Or do you just not care like most of us?
My always response to anyone who's like, you can't or you can, is it's an infinite universe that we play in this game in. And they often used to say in certain lore was like there were new planets getting discovered all the time. So why not one where they figured out the glitch where it was possible? I like the idea, and like, yes, people say, oh yeah, but you got Sisters of Battle. Yeah, they're a different thing though, and they're the zealots. They're the religious side of the like, whereas Space Marines aren't. So there is a hole, there is a window for them, and not, you know, I'm not against it. I'm very like easy going on who does what in life. My wife Olympic lifts and I do yoga, so you know there's no gender role. No, I don't think there's a gender specific role where you're going to ruin the whole thing if you let a woman wear powered armor. You know, Space Marines in the game are underpowered anyway. You know, these would be indestructible single man units who, you know, in certain novels there's one Space Marine turns up to fix a whole planet. So, you know.
Well, we did the other way. Back to Boltstorm Wargaming, slipping that plug in. We've got a group chat, and we were talking about this a few months ago, and we talked about Sisters of Battle, and so we had this idea for Vicars of Battle. Well, not Misters of Battle. We started Misters of Battle and it moved to Vicars of Battle. And then people were like photoshopping like Father Ted with bolt guns. So that was our idea. Instead of power armor, they literally had the collars on and the black suit.
That's all you need, a Catholic priest with a bolt gun. Fucking hell.
Doesn't have to be Catholic. It doesn't have to be Catholic. Just vicars in general.
Father Ted, you could have, because then you could have like the little choir boy aspect as well.
We also did the this country, the vicar from this country. We had him all mocked up with a gun. but actually, bolt action warlord games they do villages, and one of them is a vicar with a machine gun. It's true story.
That one.
So that's it from me. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll just quickly pass over to Sam and Casey. Any last minute things you guys want to say?
No, thanks for joining us, Tom. Been great talking to you as always, mate.
Always a pleasure, never a chore.
It's been great. It's been very entertaining. It's always good when a guest does lots of talking, which makes our life very, very easy. So fantastic. Okay. Thanks, Sam, for stepping at the last minute. Oh, longer. Go on, Casey.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing that you were just saying there. First of all, Sam, thanks for jumping in where Dunk's not been about tonight, mate. Appreciate it. But a question for you, Simon. Have you been making a shandy in your stomach because you were drinking a bottle of Budweiser and now you're drinking a can of Sprite? You can just mix the two together in a glass. You haven't got to mix it in your belly.
What happened was, right, I mean, the reason why I've been drinking Bud on all these streams, right, is because my brother bought me 20 bottles of Budweiser on the week I was working all week at Christmas. So I've been trying to get through them. And then I just noticed there was one left in the bottle. I was going to get a soft drink. So I've got my soft drink and then noticed there was one left in the box. And I thought, well, it'd be rude not to. Then I can throw the box away because it's bin day today. Well, bin day tomorrow morning. Then I can put it in the recycling and put the bin out. But yeah, and then it occurred to me that I have basically made a sandy in my stomach. So well noticed.
Dunk's just...
And Dunk wants to know, one last question from Dunk. Is there any model that you'd like to paint again?
Brother Romero. You can look him up. He was one of the old original lead Space Marines. He was awesome. He was also the first Legion of the Damned Marine I saw that they made. So yeah, I think it was Brother Romero. If not, it was Captain Romero. But yeah, he had a chainsaw and a bolter and he was crossing over himself. And he was an awesome little lead mini. I'd love to paint him again.
Well, again, thank you very much for joining us. And I realise it is dinner time where you are, or lunchtime where you are. So we've kept you from your food. Again, thanks, Sam, for joining us. Thanks, Casey, for turning up. I hope you get your leak fixed soon. Thanks, Dunk, for being in the chat. I don't know. You can never insult Casey again for being late because you came in at 23 minutes past 8. So thanks very much, and hopefully we'll get you on again in the near future. Thanks very much. Bye.
Take care.
Hey guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.